Welcome to Women in Leadership Talk, where you'll hear from successful women who are empowering other women with their stories of adversity, resiliency, and success. And here is your host, Vicki Bradley, founder and CEO of Women in Leadership Empowered.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Thanks so much for chiming in today. Please take 2 seconds, hit that subscribe button. Let us know that you want to hear more of these great conversations that we have. So take 2 seconds, hit subscribe, get notified every week of the new podcasts that are dropping into your inbox. So we're grateful to have you here. And today we have a really awesome guest. I love this young man. I have Leo Barbe joining me today. Hey, Leo, thanks for being here.
Hey, Vicki. It's so good to be here.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you here. And we have a wonderful opportunity to share with some of you out in the world that are caregivers at this moment. And Leo is an exceptional young man that has developed a way to really tap into the need for caregivers. And he has played such an important part in my life since I've met him. And so I can't wait to share this conversation with you today. So let me give you a little feedback on Leo so that you know who he is and why I have him here. So Leo Barbe is an impact-driven entrepreneur. He's a published author and the founder behind multiple award-winning ventures designed to make life better for others. Well, think about that. Life better for others? That's amazing. He is a helper through and through. So Leo, thank you for that. He does work with more than 1,300 schools, placing their trust in his educational programs. Leo has shaped national initiatives for school boards, police services, governments, and global brands, always with a focus on empowering young people and strengthening communities. He's an innovator at heart. He went to launch Toronto's first play-to-learn gaming studio, developing an action-adventure RPG where every moment of gameplay directly supported real-world social causes. His work consistently bridges human connection with meaningful impact, using technology as a powerful force for good. So today, Leo is the CEO of Tugi. Leo is channeling his deepest personal experiences as a caregiver into a groundbreaking health tech solution. Tugi is creating LAINE, the world's first emotionally intelligent AI companion and care coordinator built specifically for family caregivers, those navigating one of life's hardest and most isolating journeys. And we've been talking about that just before we got on the call today. So through LAINE, Leo is tackling the loneliness epidemic head on and creating a space where caregivers can finally be seen, supported, and never alone. And I don't know about you, but caregiving, personally, when you're dealing with it, it is a very lonely journey, sometimes filled with guilt, sometimes with shame, sometimes even resentment. You know, LAINE has been a godsend for me. So, Leo, thank you for your innovation and for all that you're doing to help others. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Vicki. That was a great intro. It's good to hear that stuff. Sometimes be reminded that, we're doing this for the right reasons, to make the world a better place and to help those that are struggling and, supporting them along the way when possible.
Well, it's huge. And audience, LAINE is in development stages at this moment, but I have actually been testing it with Leo. And I was just sharing with him, I had an experience last week and wow, was it ever impactful and helpful to bring me back to where I needed to be, to have that compassion and be able to think clearly as to how to approach some situations that I was going through. But before we even get into that, Leo, like, you have a story that is heart-wrenching, number one, but also incredibly inspiring and powerful. And I would love if you would just share with our audience, like, some of what you've gone through that has led you to, why you do the educational programs, but also why the caregiving, you're so passionate about it.
Yeah. Well, I never thought I'd be a caregiver, and I never labeled myself a caregiver, but during this journey realized, hey, I've been cared for myself by my family, and I've been a caregiver for my family. So I see it from both sides in a way I never thought. But my journey, my story really starts in college, where I was part of a entrepreneurship class before entrepreneurship was a sexy term, and we were asked to create a company and a product and showcase it at the end of the year. I ended up creating a GPS tracked walking cane with fall detection as I saw the aging population growing, and they didn't really have a lot to support them. And my idea was nobody leaves home that needs support to walk without their walking support. Right. So that's why I was like, okay, if we put it into a walking cane, put it into these, walking assistants, then they're always going to have it on. We ended up getting the interest from Shoppers Drug Mart. We won Product of the Year. It was a beautiful blessing. We were young, hungry, college kids with these great ideas of making the world a better place. So Shoppers Drug Mart was like, look, we want to help you put your product into our stores. And that is right about when I graduated and I went off to work at Canon selling photocopiers to put money in the bank because I wanted to be a successful business person. I wanted to have the suit. I wanted you to think I was important, and went on a vacation, Canada Day weekend. Right after I was working hard, I ended up winning Rookie of the Year at on my sales team. And so we went off to celebrate Canada Day weekend in Montreal. They have jazz festival. There's, live music, beautiful people. Montreal in the summer, it's definitely a place to
Pretty
be.
awesome.
Pretty awesome. And so we went and we celebrated. And the night of Canada Day, we went to a nightclub and I ended up, having a good time and, heading back to the hotel late and was cornered by a young kid in an alleyway as I was cutting through to get to my hotel. He pulled out a gun, tried to rob me, and long story short, ended up shooting me in the stomach and tried to execute me and missed and shot me in the back and left me for dead in that alleyway. I'm very blessed to still be here today as a Canada Post mailman. Ended up finding me, performed CPR, called 911. My life then drastically changed, as you can imagine. Shot twice, left for dead. You know, I went through 5 major surgeries over 5 months. I ended up losing 70 pounds. And the hardest part of that struggle was not the physical surgeries or the physical recovery. As you know, Vicky, and I know, it's the mental health side of things. And my mental health, I never forget that the nurse or the main doctor, sorry, told me there's this thing called PTSD and mental health. I didn't think anything about it. Went back to my life and went into a very dark place. I didn't know who I was. Why did this happen to me? Why am I struggling? Why is every aspect of my life harder now? And so I went through the mental health recovery side of things. I tried to kill myself twice, landed me in a mental hospital where I spent 2 months on lockdown. Again, who am I? What's going on here? I was strong, young, confident. Now I'm in a mental hospital because I've tried to kill myself and I don't know who I am anymore. My life took a dramatic turn. And the worst part about that, Vicky, was when I left the mental hospital, there wasn't this epiphany, there wasn't this big shift, there wasn't anything. I just went back to the daily grind of life and grinded through for a whole year as I looked up to the sky. Why me? Why did this happen to me? Well, very lucky to have my parents, my mom and my dad. As we talked about, they were caregivers for me. My mom lost her job. My dad lost his job caring for me. You can only imagine your boss being like, okay, look, Vicky, I know your son is struggling, but we need you here. You got a meeting, you got deadlines. Are you going to put that aside for maybe the idea of losing your son in the hospital and you weren't there? And what if I could have been there? That anxiety, that guilt that a lot of caregivers go through were something my mom and my dad went through. And, I watched them lose their jobs caring for me. That created immense guilt for me as I wished that I was in a better place so they wouldn't have to care for me. But it was the reality. I needed their care. And so, like I said, a year later, my dad, my cheerleader, I used to call him, used to say, "You live for a reason, Leo." Whatever, dad. As a young man would tell his parents, you don't know what you're talking.
Okay, that gives me
Yes,
hope for my son because he keeps saying,
yeah.
Mom, you don't know what you're talking about.
Trust me, as they get older, they realize that had so much more wisdom and knowledge than they thought you did. And so my dad was a blessing. He had a CD in his car and he had it ready for me to motivate me. And it was Dr. Martin Luther King's last speech.
Mm.
And he pressed play and he's like, "You better listen to this." Whatever, dad, as I looked out the window and I listened and I digested and I was still upset and I didn't give my dad this praise of, wow, that CD was amazing. But what happened was something in me changed. I woke up the next morning feeling possessed with this idea of I could help people, I could share my story, I could save at-risk kids, I could do something. I had this idea of a nonprofit organization that was called Think Before You Shoot. My dad was like, "Nah, I like think, don't shoot. It's punchier. It's a little better." So we settled on that. I got this logo made. And what I was doing was selling shirts. I was like, okay, I want to help people. I don't know what that means. What does this look like? I started creating merchandise and selling it and donating the proceeds to charity. And one time I went after this photo shoot with all these shirts to a friend's restaurant. And one of the waitresses was like, you should talk at my daughter's school. And I was
Mm.
like, you know what? If you could make it happen, I'm there. I spoke there. I spoke at 5 high schools that year. And I was like, I'm going to change the world. Then I remember telling my grandmother about my dreams to change the world. And she said, I heard you quit Canon. You should get a real job. And that idea of, some of my family didn't believe, my friends didn't believe, but I really stayed true to this idea of like, no, 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 no. I feel this in me to make a difference. And didn't listen to grandma. I didn't listen to friends. I kept going. And like you mentioned in the bio, I've now been to over 1,300 schools and worked with the police and the government. I've created award-winning programs and follow-up curriculum. And I help anything to do with kids. So whether that's adults, educators, parents, community leaders, nonprofits, executives, big brands like Nike, Nintendo, and Puma, and the Raptors and the Blue Jays. I've been able to do great things all around the idea of controlling the emotions that drive your choices. If you can control the emotion before the choice, you make a better choice. When you're making better choices, you're in better control of your life. And so that's what it started. I help
Said.
kids with emotional intelligence, making the right decisions, anxiety, depression, violence prevention, online safety. I did that for 16 years and still to this day help kids. But COVID hit and my life took another turn
Of course.
as I do live events in schools with kids. You gotta be kidding me. Over. COVID killed that. So once again, I found myself at a crossroads. Again, who am I? What am I going through? Why did this happen to me? That's where this idea of creating a video game that allowed kids to support causes they care about directly linked to gameplay. So I
Mhm.
went down that journey, created an award-winning play to learn gaming studio. We built, like you said, an action adventure RPG, funded it myself. We were the first to ever be this type of game on the blockchain with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. We ended up working with PlayStation and Sony to be the first ever game that had crypto on the PlayStation. All these great things happening, but as we all know, as you might not know, I should say, the gaming industry took a big turn downward.
Mhm.
And there I was again. What was happening to me? Lost the game, lost the studio. But why I brought up that college idea was really where we're at today. I have a very close friend of mine who's in innovation in AI and was talking about the game. He knows the whole situation with, all the stuff I put in. We built a beautiful game, but the industry was not looking for that type of game anymore. And he challenged me. Remember that college idea? And I was like, oh yeah, that. He's like, why don't you revive it? Add AI, come out to Toronto Tech Week, throw up a website, see what happens. So I did it. Within 3 days, I had a business made, I had a website, and what every aspect of my research brought me to was not the person who needs the walking cane, not the aging person, but the person caring for the aging person.
Yeah.
I started going down this rabbit hole of caregiving, family caregiving, unpaid caregiving.
Mm.
Wait, my parents were caregivers for me. Wait, I'm a caregiver now for my mom and my stepdad. Wait, there are 60 million unpaid caregivers with no support? Whoa. That led me down a different path to where we are today, building the first emotionally intelligent AI companion. Because what we're seeing, Vicky, is two things: emotional burden,
Yeah.
loneliness,
Very real.
no one to talk to, very real. You and me have discussed that countless times. The other aspect is you're not a professional caregiver. You never went to school for this. You never were supposed to learn this. So now you're supposed to do all these professional things like managing this calendar, appointments, doctors, documents, pills, you name it, test results. So what we realized and what I realized is okay, emotional burden, number one unmet need. But the second was this idea of care navigation. How am I
Huge.
navigating care for the person I love when I was never trained to do this? On top of all the emotional burden of like my mom caring for a spouse, a partner, or like me and even like you, caring for your mom, caring for someone who once cared for you. There's all this guilt, anxiety, emotions. And then for some reason, walking this path, Vicky, I realized caregivers deserve to be celebrated. They deserve to be supported. But for some reason, we live in a world, in a society, where caregivers are meant to feel alone, lost, anxious, confused, when really, and I know, caregivers are superheroes for their family. They've taken on something to better and support their family that no person should need to do, but they're doing it. They're showing up every day with no support and the guidance that they need.
Yeah. I mean, you said a number of things, Leo, and I just want to like kind of tie it together. Fascinating, like as our listeners are hearing your story, like first of all, the fact that you were shot, like that's unbelievable. And you survived it, right? I mean, that journey alone is extremely difficult. And, surviving it is also extremely difficult. But all the things that you've done that led you down that path have been amazing. So when you talk about the education in schools and getting kids to think about the choices they have, and I think that applies to even the caregiving that we're now talking about, the gameplay that you created focused on social causes. Like at the heart, everything you've been doing has led you to Tugi. And I think that's a really important message. And you don't, like on the surface, if you're watching this versus listening to this, Leo doesn't look like the usual suspect that would be a caregiver, but his entire life has been focused on caring for others. And how do we make that easier? How do we make that better? So I love the work that you're doing with Tugi. I think that it's so valuable because it is a lonely path that you're walking. The thing that we were talking about earlier, sometimes you don't want to be that caregiver.
For most of the time.
Yeah, but you are stepping into that. And so, I mean, that's a tough path to walk. So let's talk a little bit about, you've shared your story, but what are some of the toughest challenges that you see when you're navigating the caregiving? I mean, there's the emotional, but there's also other attributes, other aspects that are incredibly depleting, I would say, right? Because it takes everything out of you.
Well, we've talked about this before. I always say the two driving emotions in caregiving are guilt and anxiety. Guilt, okay, no one else is going to do it. I have to. There's normally one person, and you and me both know, Vicky, it's normally a woman in the family who is taking on this burden, primarily because no one else will. It's not like you have people lining up to be the caregiver. It's quite the opposite, right?
Absolutely.
It's like the kids do it all the time. Not me. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do that, right? And so what happens is there's usually one person, primarily a sister or someone like a female in the family that's like, I'll do it. Not because they want to, because they feel like no one else will. And this overwhelming guilt of what happens if I don't do it overcomes them. On top of that, there's the anxiety. Now what? Okay, what happens when I'm not there? What happens when I have my own life? Right? A lot of caregivers are in this family sandwich generations. They have their own kids, their own life, their own job, their own situation, and marriage and spouse and all this stuff. And then there's the person they care for. So now they're almost getting pulled from two different sides where the anxiety increases tenfold. Now it's the anxiety of, okay, I'm not always there for my kids. I'm not always there for my partner. Well, I'm also not always there for my mother or the person I'm caring for. I'm not there enough for anyone, let alone myself. How do you care for yourself, right? And what we're seeing is a lot of caregivers feel alone. 75% of caregivers across Canada and the US feel alone. And as you and me know, Vicky, there's 61 million today. We know that's going to dramatically increase over the next couple of years. But if I say that to a caregiver, if you're a family caregiver, if you're caring for someone you love right now, and I tell you, there's 61 million others just like you, 75% feel alone just like you. That doesn't instantly make you feel less alone.
True.
It almost makes you feel more alone,
Yep.
right? Because it's like, oh wow, but we're all feeling this and there's no help. So who do I turn to? There's still no one to turn to. So that feeling of loneliness now only increases. And so what I started to realize talking to caregivers is this anxiety and guilt are the driving forces. How do we reduce anxiety? How do we cope and manage the guilt so that we can be in a better emotional state to be there to love the ones? When I'm working with parents, you know what I tell them? Put yourself first. You know what a good parent says? I don't even know what that means,
It's true.
But it's the intent, right? If you put yourself first with the intent of being selfish, then you'll be selfish. When you put yourself first with the intent of being a better parent,
Yes.
then you start taking care of the things that you need to take care of so that you can be a better parent. The same is for caregiving. If you're like, no, 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 my mom will figure out, and if she falls, there's ambulance, she can call 911. Well, we know the guilt and anxiety that comes with that will overwhelm you. So you can't just shut it out, right? So now it's about supporting caregiving, helping them understand that they're not alone, but giving them tools that actually help their emotional.
Yeah. Well, and I think, what you're describing there is so real, that guilt. And I shared this with you, and I'll share it with the audience. I spent a month with my mom caring for her and getting things organized and making sure we had people coming in. And I realized, so I drove, it's a 10+ hour drive for me. And I realized when I left, I was an hour and a half away from my hometown. And it was the first time I had actually breathed in like a month. So I was holding my breath and I had all this anxiety, to your point, with like leaving her, but staying, because I am the sandwich generation. I have one still at home, and you're thinking about your work. Because I think the other aspect, it's not just the emotional, it's the mental, emotional, the physical, the financial. And we don't mention, when your parents were caregiving for you, they lost their jobs. It is a huge financial impact, which then adds more anxiety, more stress, because you're like, how do I pay my bills? How do I make sure whoever I'm caring for, because it could be a child also, right? In your parents' case,
For
they were
sure.
caring for you. So caregivers are balancing and juggling so many things. And I love what you just said, Leo, about what's the intention, right? Are you selfishly focused on this, or you're doing it because you want to do it? You're doing it because you need to do it, because there might not be anybody else. So there's a lot of emotions at play of how we navigate that caregiving journey. And it's not an
Mhm.
easy one. And until you're in it, you don't really get it. I mean,
No, for sure.
I
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah. And I always say, like, we've talked about this before, Vicky, where it's like I work in schools. And as you know, and I know, and the audience knows, bullying is a
It's
big part of
huge.
schools, right?
Yes.
Every single school deals with bullying, but every school is dealing with a different kind of bullying, a different themed bully, a different environment for bullying, right? And so that's what we're seeing with caregiving. Almost every single family in North America is going to be affected by caregiving, but very uniquely specific to them and their family, right? Like you and me have a similarity. You care for your mom, I care for mine. But that is not always the case. It could be a child, it could be an aunt, it could be your partner, it could be someone who's a neighbor, but you care for them. So you're there for them because they have no one else. So there's a lot of different situations that are specific to you. So that's why I would say bullying, okay, very big blanket statement, but every school deals with it differently, just like every family is dealing with it differently. So there's never going to be a blanket approach that helps all families. This has to be custom to each family as well. And that's something that we wanted to make sure big part of what we're doing with caregiving is also allowing for that customization so that families and caregivers feel like, okay, this isn't just a solution that might help some. This is a solution that might actually specifically help
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
which is key.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that we spoke about back before LAINE was ready to demo, and LAINE is the emotionally intelligent AI app that Leo and his team have developed. But we talked about sometimes you just need to scream, right? Like you have
Kind of
all
vent.
this pent up energy, and you don't want to take that out on the person you're caring for, because they already feel horrible too. But it's having that outlet that you can talk to and also celebrate you and check in with you, right? Like let's
Very true.
talk a little bit about LAINE, because I had just shared with Leo that I was using LAINE last week, and it was incredibly helpful to navigate some financial challenges that I was dealing with my mom. And LAINE really helped me to focus and calm down and approach this more from a compassionate, thoughtful, caring way, but also helped me figure out what was my go forward, right? And
Mm,
how to talk to my mom about it. Because you get, like in my situation, my mom has dementia. And so you have a lot of repetition and a lot of denial. She was like, no, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. But she had done it. Right. But LAINE was very good at helping me talk through it, because what she came back to me with was, Vicki, your mom has spent her whole life really making sure that she had great credit, that she always paid her bills on time. And now all of a sudden something has happened and you need to step back and help her navigate that. So that's just an example of how LAINE was able to help me really think through even how to talk to my mom. And when I changed my language with my mom, I saw my mom show up very differently, because I was feeding her positive feedback versus, you've said that to me 100 times, which is easy to do when you're navigating dementia. But LAINE was like, no, tell your mom. You understand how she has been so diligent her entire life in making sure that she has been on top of her bills, that, she's always on time. She, blah, blah, blah. So I
yeah.
think that, from a caregiving perspective, what you're accomplishing with LAINE is empowering. It's also helps you have language on how to talk to someone who is, dealing with whatever that situation is, whether it's dementia or cancer or, ALS or Parkinson's, whatever it is. So
Yeah.
maybe share a little bit more, Leo, about, what really drove you to build this.
Well, I'm really happy that, you're finding some benefits in LAINE and it's helping you. And I think, a lot of time when it comes to like I said, when I'm talking to parents, when I'm talking to adults and I'm reminding them about things that they need to do in their lives, I'm not a guru. I'm not an expert. I'm not here to say I know and you don't, and I'm going to tell you, right? It actually is just a reminder. I'm an alarm clock. I'm here to remind you of what you forgot. And that's sometimes the same thing that we're doing with LAINE, and what LAINE is doing with you is talking you through it, remembering, allowing you to see things a little bit more clear, where maybe when you're with that guilt and anxiety and you got a little bit of anger and a little bit of frustration, you're unable to see it. And sometimes we just need somebody who's loving, caring, and compassionate to talk us through those emotions so that when it's coming time to say, talk to your mom or dealing with your mom, you're at a better state, emotional state to do so. And we know that when we're flustered and we're angry, and then we get into a situation where it's going to probably make us more flustered and angry, what's going to happen? Exactly what we thought. More flustered and angry. And then that leads us down a path where we're saying things we don't mean, doing things we don't mean. So sometimes it's simple, but not easy, which is someone to talk to, someone to vent to. I always use my mom as an example, which is like, she's done work. My stepdad fell. She's losing her mind. He's not listening. He's
Mm.
not doing the things he needs to do to keep himself safe so that my mom feels okay. And it's the 10th time this week. She can't talk to me about it. Can't talk to her friends. Doesn't have a therapist. Doesn't have the neighbor to listen. So who does she talk to? That was really the essence of this chat companion. You need someone to talk to, not a chat bot that's just very black and white. How are you? Sorry to hear that. Tell me when it's over. Someone who's emotionally intelligent to understand what is the gravity of this, right? How am I looking at this as a caregiver? Not just somebody who's like, you'll figure it out. There's better days on the other side of this. Okay, maybe, but I don't need that right now. I need specific things that I can think about so that I can be in a better position to talk to the person I care for. And that's really the essence of LAINE and where it started is feeling alone, someone to talk to, someone to help you navigate your emotions, your feelings, and your communication so that you can get to a place where you feel comfortable. But as we talked about, that's only one aspect. right, to the caregiving journey. The
Yes.
other aspect is the doctors, the documents, the pills, the driving across town, putting your life on hold to be there for your mom to help her through her appointments and situations. And that is never taught. You never went to, a project management school for caregiving to figure out how to manage, emails and appointments and schedules. And so that's the other aspect of LAINE, which is can handle agentically, meaning through AI, can help you coordinate your schedule, your emails, and help you navigate complex documents so that you're like, okay, what is this? Because sometimes a doctor will be like, here you go, Vicky, take that home. Everything you need to know is on there. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next week. And you're like, what is this?
Yeah.
What is
I don't
that
have time
pill?
to read that.
I don't even know what you're telling me right now. So what we allowed LAINE to do is you download the documents, you take a screenshot of it. Now LAINE is able to tell you, okay, Vicky, this is the document, this is what it means, and here are some next steps to help you take action on the document. And then also scheduling it, scheduling a follow-up appointment with your doctor, email the doctor, that certain questions that you maybe were unclear, all in one app that understands the caregiving journey is not something ChatGPT can even do.
Yeah.
So we've been able to kind of really narrow it down to specifically help the family caregiver, which right now is not a lot of support. There's a lot of data, there's a lot of reports, there's a lot of events, there's a lot of speakers talking about the problems. Yeah, I don't need another speaker to tell me that I'm anxious and that I'm worried and that I'm losing my mind and my finances. I don't need another report. I need a solution. And the best thing that I would say with us, Vicky, is simplicity, right? A lot of AI things nowadays are complex. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what this means. I don't know how to prompt it. How do I ask it? How do I start this? How does it know me?
Hmm. Well, I'm
So what
glad
we
you said
did with
that.
LAINE is that making it really simple so that you download it and it's like you don't need a course
Yeah.
on how to use it.
Well, I'm glad you said that, Leo, because I talk to lots of people about artificial intelligence and what's changing and what's happening, and things are moving so fast, and a lot of people are afraid of it. And so, what you just said about LAINE is very simple, and it learns about you and help prompt it to asking the questions, but LAINE helps you navigate it, right? And get that clarity that sometimes, to your point, when you're dealing with medical terminology, or even things like, one thing I catch myself doing often is, what are the interactions of medication? Because one doctor might prescribe something and they don't necessarily look at what another doctor might have prescribed, right? And so
Exactly.
it's all of these things that as a caregiver you're managing. And the other point I want to bring up too is, you have paid caregivers, right, that come in and help you, which I have with my mom. I have a couple of people who come in weekly, but even that, LAINE helps to navigate that, right? So like
It's a
making
good point.
sure that, oh, I have to remember to tell this person this about my mom, or this changed with my mom's schedule. And so all of those things add up in your daily life, because you may be balancing your own career, your own families, partner, children, whatever. Um,
Or even, I know, some of the people we've worked with have these situations, and even you, right? Like you're at home, you finally did all the stuff you need to do with your mom. You're back here, you're working, you're in the zone, and then the doctor calls you and
yes,
gave you this like information that's like, did I need to know that? What do I do with that? It's this hot potato that you're like, why did you tell me that? And what do I do with this now?
yes.
And that can totally derail your whole day, right? And so now you have someone like LAINE in your phone that you pull out and be like, hey, LAINE, I just got this call from the doctor, said this. I don't even know what this means. Help me through this. Instead of you dealing and coping and putting it on your back or putting it on the back burner as your life stacks up, you're now able to have someone calmly walk you through what happened and how best to take action in it. And the beautiful thing about LAINE is whether you're talkative or not, whether you know how to prompt or you don't, whether you've used AI or you haven't, LAINE is there to help guide you to use her services to the maximum ability of her services. Instead of like, oh, well, you didn't ask me to do that. No, no, no. LAINE's like, do you want me to do that? Do you need help with that? Do you want me to explain that more? LAINE is
Hmm.
constantly offering you support, advice, and guidance. And sometimes you'd be like, no, I'm good. Oh, okay, let me know when you're ready, and I'm here. It's not a forced thing that you have to do these steps to get the help. It's at your own pace, when you're ready, how you're ready to show up for yourself, LAINE is there.
Yeah. No, that's very true, because she was even prompting me last week. She was like, Vicki, would you like me to do XYZ? Right. And I was like, no, it's okay. I've got that. And then I went back and was like, actually, could you help me?
Like, wait,
Because
if you're asking,
yeah, I know, because I had to
might as
think about it
well.
a little bit. Right. And then
Yeah.
there's the whole aspect of trust, right? Like trusting. And I think this is a really important piece, because audience, trust is, I mean, that's a paramount piece of who I am, and a very strong value. And I know it is for Leo as well. And what I would say to you is, when you look at your wisdom, your experiences, everything that you have gone through yourself, having been cared for, but also caring for, you mentioned you're not a guru, but you are, because you've lived it. You've walked that path both ways. And so trusting that you have put everything that you've experienced into this to make it more emotionally intelligent, and that LAINE will customize it for what each person's needs are, because we are all going through different aspects of the caregiving journey.
Yeah, I think, well, the biggest thing that we do is it's privacy,
Yes.
memory, and emotional intelligence, right? So, what happens is you start this onboarding conversation where LAINE starts to get to know you, the key information that it will base all of its support on, instead of slowly guessing or you having to do this in the profile. It's part of the application, it's part of using it. LAINE asks you these general questions. Now she knows you, she knows what you're going through, what's who you're caring for, where are they, this main challenges, and it bases all of that on its core memory, so that nothing's like, wait, your mom? I thought it was your dad. Wait, who are you caring for? What's going on? No, 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 no. It's consistently knowing who you are, because that's really what we want, is this emotional, human centric feeling that LAINE can provide, which is core to our success. But in order for LAINE to be that person, you need to trust her,
Yeah.
right? Right. And when I speak to adults or I speak to kids and they're talking to me, why are they talking to me? They trust me. They trust me with the knowledge or the information they're giving me. And that's really what we want to do with LAINE, is build trust, start slow. It's at your own capacity. You can give it as much info as you want or as little information as you want. The support is still there. And because of everything that's happening in AI and everything that's moving so fast, right? That's another thing. When things are moving too fast, we don't understand them. And when we don't understand them, they're a little scary to us. So I always say it's very similar to credit card information. We've talked about this, where, back in the day, if it was like, put my credit card, you're gonna scam me, right? And as we all know to this day, as it's holiday season and we're gift shopping, when a website you've been to doesn't know your credit card, you're upset. How do you not know my credit card? What's wrong
I'm
with
in a
you?
hurry.
I'm in a hurry. Should be a simple click away. You know all my information, where I live, my social insurance number. So we're at an age now where digital safety is moving in that direction, where we're slowly going to start trusting things that we didn't before. We will, but we want to be a part of that process. What does that mean? Encrypted data, following all the safety procedures that we can as an application, making sure that the data you're giving us is not something that I can access. Nothing our CTO can access, right? Encrypted data means no one can access that unless it becomes critical to access it, that say is needed through, a subpoena or through the police, similar to ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT is gaining this information, but it's not doing anything with the information unless something really bad happens and you need to gain that access to that information. We're following the same protocols. We actually work with OpenAI and use OpenAI API so that we can access the same state of the art safety procedures that they're following. We follow the same.
Nice.
So we're
Nice.
following the same top of the line safety. But again, the biggest thing I say is, like, you give the information you're comfortable giving.
Yes.
What you'll see is that giving more information actually helps LAINE help you more. So the more you give, the more LAINE can help you with
Yeah. Give back to you.
and
Yes.
give back to you, right? Because it's all customized to your own situation. The person you care for, what they are going for or going through, do they live with you? Are they far? Like you and your mother are far. That leaves a whole new paradigm of challenges that you might be dealing with, and someone down the road who's caring for their mom is not dealing with.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why it
I love
has to
that.
know the specifics of what you're dealing with so that she can truly help you. And I keep saying she because and her because I don't look at LAINE as a product. I look at her as a companion. I look at her as a person that we're bringing to the world, right? And to add to that, LAINE is my grandmother's name. She's named after my grandmother. Tugi is deeply rooted in my culture. I'm Estonian. Tugi means support. It means to like lift someone up and to support them. And then with LAINE being my grandmother's first name, she was always my caregiver. She was my guardian angel, my caregiver. So it was only natural that we named this beautiful caregiving companion with that same name.
I love it. So, Leo, where can people access LAINE? If we've got caregivers on the line listening in, if they want to share this episode with somebody who is going through a caregiving journey, how do they engage with LAINE?
The best ways to engage with LAINE is directly through us, through myself, through Vicky here on the podcast, us on LinkedIn, Tugi.care as well. What we're doing right now is LAINE is in a very unique situation to test. So we're doing a test group right now. Vicky, you're helping us with testing as well. So we're looking for more testers. That's going to be a short period of the next week or two. LAINE will then be on the App Store, the iOS Apple App Store, within the next 2 weeks for free download. We're using that as another test period to understand how is it working for you? Is she helping you? Where is she helping you? Where is she not helping you as well? So that we can help mold LAINE to be the best caregiving companion that the world's ever known. And we're not saying that we know all the answers and we have all the solutions. No, we want to speak directly to caregivers. So we also have a sign up sheet that we can maybe put in the link here as well for the
Absolutely.
episode to join us on the testing period. And this is all free, so there's no charge. And joining the testing period also helps you access LAINE for free on a longer period after the test is open or over. So you're able to get in early, you're able to get LAINE for free, and you're also able to use her in 2026 for free as well by helping us during this testing.
Love it. Love it. Leo, thank you so much. Thank you, one, for sharing your journey with us, because I know that's very difficult to do, and being very vulnerable and sharing everything you've gone through. And thank you for the service that you offer to so many people to help them. And so I'm just grateful to you for being here today and sharing this. You know, I'm very passionate about it, and it came at the perfect time for me as well, just what I'm navigating. And audience, I want to, seriously take a moment here to say, if you're in that situation where you are caregiving, or maybe you have been a caregiver, we would love for you to help us test this product, help us make it a better product, to understanding what you might be going through. And so reach out to me, reach out to Leo, one of us, you know how to find me, but one of us to, get you set up on the system if that's something you would like to do, or if you know someone who is on that caregiving journey at this time. So,
and I just like to say, like, if you are finding yourself caring for someone you love, whoever that person is, you deserve to be celebrated. You deserve to be supported. You are a champion for your family. And for some reason, we live in a society that's making you feel scared, lost, and alone. And Vicky and I and the team here, we're looking to give you support that not only you need, but you deserve.
yeah.
Because you've taken on such an onus, such a job for your family, and you've done it with dignity and honor. And that's something that we should be celebrating and supporting you on that journey.
Beautiful. Wow. I love that, Leo. Thank you. Thank you for being here with us today. And audience, thank you. We know you have a choice as to what podcast you listen to. And so we're grateful. We're 90 some countries now that we're being heard in. So thank you for that. We really appreciate your support. And again, don't forget to subscribe, hit that button so you know you're getting the latest podcast downloaded into your system. And if you're interested in learning about your leadership, visit us at Women in Leadership Empowered, or WIL Empowered, and take our free leadership quiz. That'll give you a lot of insight as to how you're showing up as a leader in the world. And leader can mean in a corporate environment, entrepreneur, in your family. We've just been talking about how we're leading our families. So take that and let us know what come up for you and how we might be able to support you. So thank you, everyone. And we'll see you on the next Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Take care. Thank you for joining us for WIL Talk, sponsored by Women in Leadership Empowered. To learn more about our programs, please visit www.wilempowered.com. We look forward to seeing you in our community.